The Assistant Majority Leader is recognized.
Mr. President, after Watergate, Congress passed the Inspector General Act, creating independent watchdogs who would ensure integrity, transparency, and accountability for executive branch agencies and officials. Since then, inspectors general have played a vital role in exposing misconduct by administration of both political parties. Over the years, IGs have proven indispensable, so much so that Congress has repeatedly expanded their ranks. Originally 12 after the 1978 Inspector General Act, now 74 separate independent inspector generals in the federal government. In 1988, Congress created several new inspectors general, including an inspector general for the Department of Justice. The IG oversees Justice Department's components ranging from the FBI to the Federal Bureau of Prisons to the Drug Enforcement Administration, but there is a problem. There is a loophole. There is one clear omission when it comes to the authority of inspector generals. Listen, the Justice Department Inspector General cannot investigate professional misconduct by Justice Department lawyers. Let me repeat that. The Justice Department Inspector General cannot investigate misconduct by Justice Department lawyers. This means the department's independent inspector general cannot investigate allegations of misconduct by lawyers in the department's National Security Division, Criminal Division, 93 offices of U.S. attorneys, or even the Attorney General himself. Well, what does this result in? All too often, Justice Department officials from administration of both political parties have escaped independent scrutiny by the Inspector General. The IG was unable to investigate, for example, discovery violations during the prosecution of former colleague Ted Stevens. The Inspector General was unable to investigate the unethical non-prosecution agreement with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And absent approval by the Attorney General or his deputy, the Inspector General cannot investigate professional misconduct by high-ranking Department of Justice political appointees. This lawyer loophole, of all places, is unique to the Justice Department. The Department of Justice, I want this clear for the record, is the only agency in the federal government whose Inspector General cannot investigate professional misconduct by agency lawyers. I hope that's clear. Inspectors General investigate the activity and conduct of lawyers in every other federal agency other than the Department of Justice. Instead, DOJ lawyers get special treatment. They aren't subject to the investigation of every other federal lawyer. Instead, they are under the supervision of the Department's Office of Professional Responsibility, known as OPR. Now, I don't dispute the skill or dedication of OPR. The problem is not their qualifications, it's their independence. Listen to this. Unlike the Inspector General, OPR reports to the Attorney General, who can control and even terminate investigations. This doesn't happen in any other federal agency. This creates an unfair double standard where every DOJ employee is subject to Inspector General scrutiny. So if you're an FBI agent, Inspector General is going to be watching your conduct to make sure it's proper. Drug Enforcement Administration agents in the Department of Justice, subject to the Inspector General. U.S. Marshals, subject to the Inspector General. Federal prison guards, Inspector General. They can all be investigated by the independent Inspector General except for the lawyers. And it enables the appearance, if not reality, of politicization in cases where the alleged misconduct involves high-ranking department attorneys. For years, literally decades, across administrations, other senators before us, and Senator Lee and myself now, have worked to close the lawyer loophole with our Inspector General Access Act. He advocated for this bill when Bill Barr was the Attorney General of President Trump. I'm advocating for this bill when Merrick Garland is the Attorney General of President Biden. You'd be hard-pressed to find a bill with broader-based bipartisan support. Our original co-sponsors included, and he's here today on the floor, my colleague Senator Grassley, the ranking member of Department of Justice, the Judiciary Committee, Senator Leahy, Feinstein, Rubio, Klobuchar, Cruz, Coons, Blackburn, Blumenthal, and Hirono, to name a few. Last year, we considered this bill in the Judiciary Committee, and we reported it out of the committee after a debate, and the vote was 21-1 to bring this bill to the floor. Unfortunately, it didn't pass last year. It passed the House. It passed again this year in the House. This broad support reflects a basic principle. No Attorney General from either political party should be insulated from independent scrutiny by the Inspector General, and no Attorney General should have veto power over the Inspector General's authority to investigate Department of Justice attorneys, whether that Attorney General is a Democrat or a Republican. Mr. President, I'd like at this point to yield to my colleague, Senator Lee.
Senator from Illinois is recognized.
I thank the senator from Utah for his co-sponsorship of this bipartisan measure. I want to yield at this point to the ranking Republican member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I can't think of a single member on either side of the aisle who has been as outspoken as Senator Grassley of Iowa on the role and the importance of inspectors general. I yield the floor to Senator Grassley. President,
Illinois.
I thank the senator from Iowa for his spirited support of this effort. I'm glad he used that classic example of all the hearings, and we've had many good ones and many important ones in the Senate Judiciary Committee this week, or this year. The one we all remember is when the gymnasts came, the Olympic gymnasts came. These wonderful young women came before us and summoned the courage to tell us about the abuse that took place by a man who purported to be a doctor, Larry Nassar. And then sitting next to them during the entire presentation was the head of the FBI taking the medicine he should have taken, because the Inspector General gave us a graphic report of how the agents at the Federal Bureau of Investigation let those young women down. When they summoned the courage to come forward and to tell the world what had happened to them, it was virtually ignored by the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Thank goodness the Inspector General was there to be critical, to produce the evidence, and to make it clear to the American people that this conduct was disgusting and deplorable and unacceptable. The Inspector General was critical for the administration of justice. Why is it any different if instead of an attorney who works for the Federal Bureau of Investigations, we're talking about an attorney who works in a U.S. Attorney's office somewhere in the United States or in the Department of Justice itself? It shouldn't make a difference. And as Senator Grassley and Senator Lee have made clear, all we are asking for is the same level of accountability for attorneys in the Department of Justice that applies to every other federal agency. Why are we treating these attorneys any differently? Senator Grassley makes the point. We are succumbing to bureaucratic deference at a time when we ought to have our eyes wide open. And wide open, we would see that this bill, which was extensively debated and discussed last year and reported out of the Senate Judiciary Committee under the chairmanship of Senator Graham by a vote of 21-1, wasn't called on the calendar. We're bringing it back this year in the same manner, and we've had extensive discussions last year. The bill has not changed. We're bringing it back this year, and I believe now is the time for us to do what is right for the cause of justice. And so I ask unanimous consent the Judiciary Committee be discharged from further consideration of S. 426 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration. Further, that the bill be considered read a third time, passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President,
The senator from Illinois is recognized.
disappointed by the objection by the senator from Arkansas. This has overwhelmingly has bipartisan support in the House and in the Senate. And we had an opportunity to make history today, and we've missed that opportunity for the moment. The suggestion that inspector generals are not up to the job of inspecting attorneys, I'm afraid if you look at the fact that every other federal agency's lawyers are subject to review and scrutiny by the inspectors general and their departments, it certainly says that that particular observation is not accurate. The argument that the Attorney General, because he is approved by the President directly and by Congress, should be the person to make this decision, overlooks the obvious. Each Inspector General goes through the approval process, a nomination process, and advice and consent of the Senate. So they are subject to the same level of scrutiny. And I might also add, what we are suggesting has been an evolution that I think really calls for this change that we've asked for in this measure. But in the course of that evolution, in the year 2002, the Inspector General's responsibilities were extended within the Department of Justice to apply to both the FBI and DEA agents who are involved, obviously, in significant law enforcement operations within the department. The Inspector General has handled that responsibility without jeopardizing any prosecutions. So I think that argument is certainly a weak argument when you look at the facts since 2002. We will return with this. I'm glad to have bipartisan support of Senators Lee and Grassley. There is more to be said on this subject, and I believe that if we are going to apply the standard of IG's responsibility for lawyers' activity across federal government, there is no reason to make an exception for the Department of Justice. I yield the floor.